Hey, it's me. And here's why. Does snow only fall in cold places? Have you ever noticed that every single time it snows, it seems to snow in the same places over and over again? It always seems to be the northern parts of countries that receive the most snow, and it's almost impossible for snow to fall in warmer regions. So why is this the case? Well, there are a few reasons behind this, but the main one has to do with how the clouds form and what temperatures are like at certain altitudes. When water evaporates from Earth's surface, it rises into the atmosphere. As it rises, it cools and condenses into tiny water droplets or ice crystals. These particles then become clouds. The reason why clouds form at all is because when air rises, it expands, which lowers its pressure. When air expands, it loses its ability to hold water vapor, which is known as saturation. So when air rises, if it reaches a point where it can no longer hold all the water vapor, then the excess will condense into clouds. When the temperature of the air is below 0 degrees Celsius, the water droplets in the clouds freeze into ice crystals instead. Now, these ice crystals are what we call which means they remain in a liquid state even though the temperature is below freezing. This is possible because of the particles in the clouds known as condensation nuclei, which are microscopic solid or liquid particles in the air that serve as a starting point for the formation of clouds and precipitation. When water vapor condenses on these particles, it forms a layer of liquid water around them, which stabilizes the droplet and prevents it from immediately freezing into ice. However, if the ice crystal hits a region with temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius, then the supercooled water will immediately turn into ice. If the ice crystals become too heavy, they fall to the ground as snow. As mentioned earlier, for snow to form, the temperature of the clouds must be below 0 degrees Celsius. This is why snow is only seen in cold places. The reason why colder regions get more snow than warmer regions is because colder regions have lower pressure and allow for more water to be held in the clouds. Areas that have high pressure and warm temperatures, such as deserts, hardly ever see snow because there isn't enough water in the clouds to begin with. Another reason why snow is only seen in cold places is because when the air temperature is above 0 degrees Celsius, the water in the clouds will simply fall to the ground as rain instead of snow. In order for snow to occur, the temperature must not just be at 0 degrees Celsius, but actually below 0 degrees Celsius all the way down to the ground. If we were to take a vertical slice through a cloud and examine the temperature profile, we would see that the temperature decreases with height. This is because as the air rises, it expands, which causes it to cool. However, the rate at which the temperature decreases with height is not constant and varies depending on the altitude and the surrounding environment. This is known as the lapse rate. For example, during the day, the lapse rate in the troposphere, the lowest layer of the atmosphere, is typically around 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. This means that for every 1 kilometer increase in altitude, the temperature would decrease by 6.5 degrees Celsius. However, at night, the lapse rate can be much lower, typically between 3 and 4 degrees Celsius per kilometer due to the lack of solar radiation. In order for snow to form, the temperature needs to drop below 0 degrees Celsius all the way down to the surface. If the lapse rate is too high, then the temperature at the surface may not be low enough to produce snow. For example, if the lapse rate is 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer and the temperature at the top of the cloud is -20 degrees Celsius, then the temperature at the surface would only be -10 degrees Celsius. In this case, the water in the clouds would simply fall to the ground as rain rather than snow. However, if the lapse rate is lower, then the temperature at the surface may be below 0 degrees Celsius, allowing for snow to form. This is why snow is more likely to occur at night when the lapse rate is lower. One of the key factors that determines the lapse rate is the amount of moisture in the air. Higher moisture levels lead to more energy being available for cloud formation and a greater cooling effect, resulting in a higher lapse rate. On the other hand, drier air leads to less energy being available for cloud formation and a smaller cooling effect, resulting in a lower lapse rate. This is why snow is more likely to occur in areas with higher levels of moisture, such as near oceans or over land masses that have large bodies of water nearby. Areas with lower levels of moisture, such as inland deserts, are less likely to see snow. Another factor that affects the lapse rate is wind. Wind can transport air from different altitudes, mixing the air and preventing the formation of distinct temperature layers. This can lead to a more stable atmosphere with a lower lapse rate, making it less likely for snow to form. This is why areas that experience strong winds, such as mountain peaks and coastal regions, are less likely to see snow. In contrast, areas with calm winds, such as valleys, are more likely to see snow, since the air is more likely to remain stratified, and a stable lapse rate is maintained. In addition to the lapse rate, the amount of snowfall also depends on the amount of moisture in the air. More moisture in the air leads to more water vapor available for snow formation, resulting in heavier snowfall. On the other hand, less moisture in the air leads to less water vapor being available for snow formation, resulting in lighter snowfall. This is why areas with higher levels of moisture, such as near oceans and overland masses with large bodies of water, tend to receive more snowfall than areas with lower levels of moisture, such as inland deserts. But all of this doesn't explain why snow falls in some cold places and not others. It might snow in one village, but just a few miles away in another village, it might not snow at all. Well, this comes down to something called orographic precipitation. When air moves over a geographical feature such as a mountain range, it is forced to rise. As it rises, it expands, which lowers its pressure and causes it to cool, leading to condensation and the formation of clouds and precipitation. This type of precipitation is known as orographic precipitation. So basically, it only snows where there are mountains, or more specifically, it snows on the windward side of a mountain range, while the leeward side remains dry. This is why many coastal regions receive more snow than inland areas. The air coming from the ocean is forced to rise as it hits the mountains, leading to the formation of clouds and precipitation on the windward side. By the time the air reaches the leeward side of the mountain range, it has already lost most of its moisture, resulting in little to no snow. And that's why snow only falls in cold places. But I want to ask you, have you ever seen snow before? Because I sure have. And I think it's beautiful. Anyway, click here to watch this video and subscribe if you want. And click here to watch this video instead. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.